Okay, so this is the work that we have been doing in terms of documentation of innovations and also communication, the actions that we have undertaken in Mexico. Okay, what I would like to talk about in these minutes is first sharing the training and communication frameworks that we used. I'm going to show you the materials that we developed, and I will identify the tools that we used in this project. First, I will give you a brief context. Probably you are already familiar with it. However, I think it's important. We have problems that we were studying, and first we concentrated on the climate change impact. This has created a strong impact. We saw this since 2010 when we were working with Masagro project. And then under the umbrella of CLCA, we continued studying this climate change. Irregular rainfall was the first factor, and also a temperature increase. Then in 2019, when we started working in Mexico with this project, we conducted a diagnosis with what we call family production units. We studied the forage needs specifically. And then when we wanted to increase the participation of growers, the pandemic began. It was 2020, and as you know, everybody, not only Mexico, has suffered from different waves of this pandemic. So somehow the communication efforts were impaired. So in 2020, what we did was to conduct trials, or rather assays, trying to understand how could we improve the communication with growers. In Oaxaca, many communities were shut down. Those production units are of indigenous peoples, and the government decided to shut down those communities for foreigners. That created lots of issues for us in 2020. Fortunately, 80% of the production units that we worked with were open to us, but as for the rest, the 20% remaining, we had to connect with them remotely, or even through messages, even letters. We wrote letters describing the activities that were being made. So those were the communication efforts in some local communities. Then we started increasing the growers' participation. We were able to conduct several training courses. That was 2021 and 2022. Things are improving. We had already given several training courses. We also started working with some policies in Mexico. So through the program Sembrando Vida and Producción para el Bienestar, Production for Well-being and Planting Life, we have been able to outreach more growers. So this is a context where our innovations worked. As you remember, we have been working in different areas. For instance, intercropping with forage and maize, and live barriers in order to avoid soil deterioration. We have been working with forage mixtures, and we have done some controlled grazing. And we have seen other alternatives, like, for instance, silage and these nutritional blocks. We have found some alternatives that somehow are supplementing animal nutrition. We have seen that feed management in that area is quite deficient. So we identified the following. First, what are we facing so that we can reach more people? We understood that many of these processes that we were conducting at each crop season required training in order to fine-tune, for instance, innovation management, agronomic, and animal management as well. So first we did a diagnosis. We said, okay, what's the communication that we have available? Internet, cell phone, and fixed lines. Cell phones and fixed lines, some people have it. However, internet is almost new. Our growers do not use Facebook, no YouTube or Twitter. Instagram, they don't use it. And WhatsApp, some of them used it, not all of them. So we started identifying these leaders who know how to use WhatsApp. Also the platforms so that we could have video calls like Google, Zoom, Skype. It was almost impossible, really. And we realized that within the conventional communication means, those communities have access to TV, radio, DVD, and sound cars. Obviously, TV was very expensive. We could not start working with TV because there are no community channels at Oaxaca or broadcasting stations. Radio, there are some broadcasting radio stations in some communities, but not in all of them. DVD, yes, they had several DVD units in the communities. That was helpful. And also sound cars. Sound cars was easier. We also studied if we had cell signal in some areas. It was possible. We also saw that it was possible to buy some cards, and some localities were quite remote and distant, but it was possible to pay for recharging the cell phones. And the population was, the average age, more than 50. There was low youth participation, and agriculture was the second source of income in some areas close to the urban areas. So we started mixing internet communication with conventional communication. In some cases, we took some tablets. Some of our allies bought tablets and they downloaded videos showing some training courses. They took those tablets to the communities in order to provide training, specifically during 2020. It was kind of complicated to give this kind of training because it was difficult to have access to this kind of tools. We even tried to record some radio tracks in order to have the help of these sound cars. It was, they are already used to this sound car as part of their community life. So we resorted to it as well. So this was the context. And as of then, we started identifying how to provide better training, how to communicate better with the growers. And we realized that a mix of communication means was important. So as you can see, this was kind of complicated. We started publishing several things outside to be able to
in order to be
identify
able to
social networks.
identify network, social media. That was not precisely something that our producers were going to do. It wasn't specifically for the process. It was so that we could promote what we were doing. So basically, the promotion of the activities have been through Facebook and Twitter, the different accounts of the collaborators that work in this project. We've worked at different levels. We developed materials that were able to be distributed video and printed through WhatsApp, and then through Enlace Journal, we were able to generate some newsletters, some articles. We were able to write some articles. We were speaking about diversification and sustainable growth. And then we worked with some manuals as well. Then up to this moment, we have already finished something about determination of the age physiology of the ruminants and body build of ruminants. So with this, we wanted to complement the materials and promotion, and we're still working on this about information. We're trying to take them to the producers for the next weeks. And lastly, here we wanted to see how we could collect all of this information and report it. We generated a database for research for our platform in research and promotion based on databases. Then this allows us to understand several things. And in terms of extension, what we worked on was basically the platform for e-agrology information, where we could collect and put together all of the agricultural information that could generate, and livestock that could generate results. It allows us to have this reservoir of information on our side. And with that, we can do different types of analysis. We're feeding into this platform. At this point, we're still collecting all of the information from the winter 21-22, and we're entering information of the different production units, animal production that is still being collected and entered at this point. So these are new elements that we have been working on. And with this is a little bit about what we have been working on. I don't know if it's possible that you could share the video that I sent yesterday. This is a fragment. Here we can identify how we present the material as manuals and guidelines. Yes, of course, I have that here. So you tell me where to stop. We're going to do this for about 5 minutes. It's a bit lengthy. It's 16 minutes, so maybe 2 or 3 minutes so that they can observe how we develop the videos, the material. Hello, my name is Dr. Nayeli Salen, zootechnologist, veterinary doctor. We are going to build a block, a multi-nutritional block for your animals. These blocks can be offered for cows, for sheep and goats. These three species are the ones that can eat from them. The important thing is to not leave them at hand for donkeys or horses, because this can have a level of toxicity for them. What is a multi-nutritional block? A multi-nutritional block is a supplement, it's a balanced feed that adds the nutrients for the animal gradually. It is a solid form. So then the animals start licking into this block and then uptake whatever they need daily. And in this way, well, this would not be met in the daily feed, either grazing or when they are served in their pens. The importance of a multi-nutritional block is that it improves the microorganisms in the ruminant. It increases this population and increases or improves digestibility of the feed, increasing the consumption. This is going to be reflected in daily weight gains. So the blocks are very easy to make, particularly the cost is very low, because what we use are ingredients that are normally found in your region. This cuts down on cost. You can make them by hand, and it's not necessarily to have machinery, specialized machinery. And they can also be stored in a very simple way. The important thing is that they are not left at the ground level, and they can be in an enclosed place. So these blocks are used mainly in drought, where the quality of the feed is low, does not meet the requirements that the animal needs in order to grow and develop. And so what is offered is this multi-nutritional block. It's added to grazing or as a supplement in the throats. What are the advantages? of offering these multi-nutritional blocks. The first thing is that all of the ingredients that are used for their manufacturing can be found in the region. That reduces cost of making them. And of course, in production. Aside from that, storage is not a complicated thing. You can have them in dry places. Yes, that is a requirement at a height about 10 or 15 centimeters up from the floor so that it's not in direct contact with the floor, avoiding any contamination from other components. Can you leave it up to there? That's because of time constraints. Yes, of course. So as you were able to observe here, what we're trying to do is to generate different types of materials so that we can offer the training and promotion at a distance. And in conclusion, I believe that it is important to understand the context of communication in the different zones or areas, how to use the technologies to the fullest. One of the things that happens frequently nowadays is that we forget traditional means of communication. In other words, the use of loudspeakers or being able to send out newspapers or even uh, installing murals in certain communities. These are elements that are worthwhile to remember that they exist. Let's just think that not everything has to be done via Wi-Fi or internet. This is not available in all of the communities, unfortunately. So these are the elements that we have been able to work with. In some cases, we have already been able to start training in direct presential training. We've had larger numbers, but this is a whole process. It's learning collectively to see how we can uh, do the proper management, avoiding spread of the virus. So also how to collect all of this information and then keep it in databases so that we can demonstrate the changes that we have been planning to do. Thank you very much. This is all on my side. Thank you. And I remind everybody, if you have to pose a question, you can do this. You can raise your hand, or you can open your microphone, or you can enter that question into the chat. Let's take a question. This is on my side. What you presented is very interesting in regards to the fact that you mapped the characteristics of your target audience, and that was connected to the products and communication means that you're going to choose. Can you tell us a little bit about what the process was like of how you identified your target market or your group? And if this is a co-process with the producers or with the extensionists, or how did you come to understand this, who your users would be and how to reach them? The first thing that we did was identifying the channels at a macro level. This is more from the macro level. This was worked with another collaborator and myself. What do we know about the area, the zone? And we broke it down. After that, then we started working with our network of the collaborators and the extensionists through Zoom meetings. Obviously, they did have access to Zoom. And then we started to comment on the things the communities had and the levels we had of contact. And then what we started to do was to identify and seeing that maybe at least there was a producer that was a bit younger that was used to using WhatsApp. In the younger generation or producers who are about 30, obviously this is not the majority, because in Mexico's case, people are more into their middle age. People between 30 to 40 are the ones that are using WhatsApp, and we can identify them. So that's how we started working with them. The other thing that we came to understand is that many of the producers did have cell phones, but they didn't have smartphones. So then we couldn't work with WhatsApp. And the
pero hace
messages
unos días no se nos hacía lo
in
más
this case
adecuado porque
was not the most appropriate
tenías
thing
que
because there was a
este,
limitation of the number of
tampoco podíamos darle
characters that
tantas
you can write in a
explicaciones,
text
¿no?
message. You can
Pues decidimos
send out
implementar
thorough
esta parte
explanations. We
pues de manera
decided to work with
individual.
this and to see
Nosotros cada vez que íbamos a la
that
comunidad
anytime that we went out into the
pues
communities, we could
en medio
observe the
de
traditional
pues
things.
de
That
todas
was the
todas
loudspeakers.
las
Every afternoon or every morning,
niveles
there were certain
de
levels
anuncios
of
en la comunidad
ads that are
para
made
poder anunciar
in the
la
community to publicize any
la venta
food or whatever they
o
might be
los anuncios
selling or
y pues eso
notifications
era como muy
or
normal
news.
para los que
This
llegaban
was something very normal.
así como recordarles que
And
también existen
then we thought about this, we
con el
saw
local.
them
Entonces,
and
ese fue
considered
un
them.
poquito el
That
seguimiento
was a little bit of the
a
process,
la
how
banda,
we started working, because
teníamos pues este proyecto y teníamos
we
varios
had this project
proyectos
and we had many
entonces
others
pues
running alongside,
cómo
and we all had
generar
to talk about how to generate
los
the
espacios, bueno,
promotion. And in some
como
cases, we organized
pruebas para ver algunos temas, pero bueno, pues eran conversaciones
some
para
mini
saber
meetings to look into certain topics. These were the situations that we were considering.
muy
For
importante
me,
era como
the important
identificar
thing was
a
to
quién
identify who was the target. If it was the producer,
en redes sociales
and nothing that we would do in social media or through Zoom would reach them, or maybe it would only reach a few. It wasn't the right means.